He's Frank Schwab. I'm Jason Fitz. It is late on Sunday evening, and that means it's time for Inside Coverage, where we will break down every single game that we saw today throughout the course of the day. And Frank, we always start this by catching up, right? We always start this by getting a little bit of catch up on how your day was and what the experience was like. Let me just tell you something, brother. We learned something today. We learned something today. We learned there are a lot of bad football teams in the NFL. Like in an up and down world, man, there were a lot of teams today that really showed their ugly head that are just bad football teams.
Yeah, I think we finally reached the week. Everybody asks, like, when do the teams start to separate? When do things kind of calm down? When do things get a little more predictable? We finally reached that. This wasn't the chaotic first few weeks where, 98% of survivor pools are done already. This was kind of chalky and honestly not the best slate of games. Like, it was interesting because you get some takeaways from them. There's some interesting results. But as far as compared to all the drama we've had the first 5 weeks, week 6 was, let's be honest, relatively tame.
Yeah, well, you're right. And I don't know if I'm supposed to love or hate that. Like, I love the fact that this year has been so unpredictable that we're sitting there saying, what in the hell is going on every single game? But I also kind of watched this and thought, okay, I need the league to normalize. At some point, for you and I that love to dabble, it's been really difficult to dabble this year because everything has been so wild, right? And I felt like as I was watching, I thought, okay, as the waters are starting to settle a little bit, we're starting to see some teams separate. We're going to start having the real conversations this week of who's actually good and who's actually bad. And we would usually get that indication. Now, let's be transparent here. Typically, we start with the Sunday night game because the Sunday night game is so exciting. That's not going to be the case right now because the Sunday night game wasn't so exciting.
I need some time to get over that game. Like I almost told you I need to take a nap. But that game was god awful. God bless anybody who sat through that miserable four quarters of football. It was not good.
This is why I hate Sunday night football. I'm the one person in America that actually doesn't like Sunday night football. And my thing is wow, the whole day is. What? Yeah, I know. Hear me out. The whole day is this declining level of return. So the 1 o'clock games, Eastern time, the 1 o'clock games, you've got this just mad chaos. We've talked about it. It's great to be in a Buffalo Wild Wings. You got the place is packed. Everybody's watching games. It's great. Now, for me, as a Raiders fan, usually I watch about 3/4 of that bar just empty out, right? Wherever you are, it empties out because the 4 o'clock games, there aren't as many. It's not as interesting to a lot of people. There's very few teams that always play, and many of them today and most Sundays suck. So you've got diminishing returns by the time you get to 4 o'clock. Then you get to 7 o'clock. You watch Football Night in America where you're watching highlights of games you've already seen. So that's kind of useless. And then you sit there and you realize now I only have one game. I've gone from having 10 games to having 5 to one game. I get one game Sunday night. And man, if you're not a fan of one of those teams, you cannot tell me that you aren't doom scrolling. You're looking at Instagram Reels, seeing what's going. More people tonight were looking at Aiden Hutchinson updates than actually watching that Sunday night game. You hit the spot where there's a lull in the energy. You've had all the nachos you can have. There's no more tasty treats you can put in your stomach. You just got to sit there and suffer through Sunday night football. Sunday night football sucks.
Wow. I did not expect that rant. I'll tell you, that's coming in hot. Sunday night football is great if the matchup is good. The NFL just overrates our desire to watch the New York Giants play football. They really do. It's like primetime Giants again. Really, guys, we don't want to see this team anymore. Get them off my TV.
All right. Well, the game we all wanted to see is the game we should start with. This was the juggernaut, the game of the century, the game of the millennium, this week's game of the lifetime. Baltimore taking on Washington. And I'm telling you, Frank, I'm going to use college football mindset here. I think my heart grew, 2 sizes. My respect for Washington, which was already getting high, actually grew in this game. Because if the argument was, well, Washington's not really a kid, I think Baltimore is one of the best teams in the NFL. I don't think that that's really questionable. I think they've got to work some kinks out. They're getting some rhythm and flow, but I think they're one of the best teams in the NFL. And I watched that game thinking, Washington's going toe-to-toe. I mean, they were never out of it. There are moments I think they want back, but man, Washington went toe-to-toe with them. I actually walked away from it saying, yeah, Washington is a legit football team, even in a loss. I
agree with you. I mean, Jayden Daniels went 24-35, 269, 2 touchdowns. What more can you expect from the kid? Look, the only thing we learned was the Commanders aren't as good as the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, no big shock, but I thought the Commanders handled themselves really well. They should feel like coming out of that game, all right, we could play with anybody because They were in this game. They were competitive. They did this without any running game at all. They really missed Brian Robinson in this game, which I didn't expect as much as played out. But Jayden Daniels kept them in this game. If you expect the wheels to fall off Jayden Daniels at some point, like, it's just not going to happen. He's good. He's legit. We'll talk about the guy drafted ahead of him too. It's a really fun story emerging there with these top 2 picks. But yes, you come out of this game as a Commanders fan saying, okay, the Ravens got us, but the Ravens are going to get just about everybody this year. So no big deal there. Our team looks good. It looks legit. It looks like it's improving. And, that's all I took. All I took from it is the Commanders aren't in the Ravens tier yet, but nobody was surprised by that.
Also, look at the Ravens side of this. Lamar, 20 of 26 for 323 yards. Derrick Henry, 24 rushes for 132 yards, including some big ones as that game went on. Zay Flowers, 9 catches for 132 yards. I'm not just reading stats here. I think these are important stats because it shows you that when this offense is kicking on all cylinders, man, pick your poison. What are you going to stop?
How do you stop it? How do you stop this? It's amazing that basically, like, I watch this Ravens team every week, and Lamar's awesome still. Like, again, Lamar's going to Hall of Fame, all that kind of stuff. He's locked in already. But it's almost like Lamar is not the engine of this offense anymore. They have him to throw over 330 yards if they need it. But Derrick Henry, they've figured out, oh my goodness, we could just get chunks and chunks of yards with this guy. I think he has been their MVP so far this season, as crazy as that sounds, when you have a 2-time MVP at quarterback playing at the same level he's always played at, because Derrick Henry's just changed the offense. It's no longer the Lamar show. It is, we can beat you any way you want. You want Derrick Henry for 132 yards? Here you go. Like, you talk about Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers did all of that in the first half. He didn't even have a catch after halftime. He set a franchise record for catches and a half with 9. And then it was like, okay, well, we'll just do something else in the second half if you take him away. Rashad Bateman was catching balls. Mark Andrews came out of his slumber all of a sudden. It was like, wow, Mark Andrews is back with 66 yards and a touchdown. If this team stays healthy, if Derrick Henry doesn't get worn down, which most mortal people would at this point, but Derrick Henry is just a freak.
He's not mortal.
He's not. He's just built out of steel or something. I don't get how he's still doing this at his age with the workload he's had going all the way back to high school. It's amazing how he just looks fresh. He looks like a second-year running back. I don't know how you stop this because, again, if you try to take away Lamar in the running game, Derrick Henry's going to gash you. You try to take away Derrick Henry, well, good luck dealing with the rest of the Ravens. The Ravens just, look, they had the obviously the opening night loss against Kansas City, no big deal. That's going to happen. The weird loss to your Raiders. But every other game, it's like, this might be the best team in football because Derrick Henry has just completely changed how they look as a football team.
There were 2 plays in the fourth quarter I thought were significant. Late in the game, when all Washington had to do was get a stop, and we know their defense is a liability, there was a quick toss to the outside. Now, this Ravens offense likes to use this little quick toss that forces somebody to make a business decision to try and stop Derrick Henry, and it was just a not you fat Jesus moment where Derrick Henry ran through and over everybody, and it ended it. And then late in the game, obviously, when they needed it, was 3rd and 1. Even the broadcaster said, and I thought it was such an important point, 3rd and 1 is a nightmare against this Ravens team because they're either going to give it to like you don't like and what they did is they faked the handoff and they rolled Lamar out and there's nothing you could do. There was nothing you could do to stop this team when they choose to run the football the way they did. There is take a shot every time I say this, but there's an efficiency. That's my favorite word this year. There's an efficiency to the way that they run their offense right now. I don't know what you do other than hope that you catch somebody on a bad day. Todd Monken had a couple of games this year that I think he's sort of lost handle on the play calling, and that's not the case right now.
I don't think he knew what he had. I think he was probably thinking like, I can't give this guy 30 carries a game. He's 30 years old. He's led the NFL in carries for the last 5 years. It would have been 5 of 5 if he didn't get hurt. I can't just give him the ball 30, 35 times, and then he figured out by like week 3, like, again, this guy's not mortal. I can give him the ball 40 times if I want. It doesn't matter. He's Derrick Henry. I have loved Derrick Henry's career so much. He's my favorite back since Barry Sanders. I just enjoy watching him so much because he's such a unicorn. And we talked about this in the offseason. We've talked already about this during the season. The Ravens have a better shot at success in the playoffs because they have Derrick Henry. You're not going to see another game like the AFC Championship game last year where they handed the ball off 5 times because they just didn't trust Justice Hill and Gus Edwards. They're going to go into a game against the Chiefs this postseason and say, all right, get ready for a big serving at Derrick Henry because he's going to get as many carries. And if you can stop him, that's fine. But we can counterpunch. I think this Ravens team might not have as good of a regular season as they had last year. They were awesome in the regular season last year, but they are much better equipped for playoff success. And this is a team that made the AFC Championship game and didn't really lose by that much. Zay Flowers doesn't fumble by the end zone. They might win that game. This Ravens team is better equipped for a deep postseason run, I think.
They're also just such a nightmare because formation doesn't tip their hand. And that's just such a part of this. Like, okay, so you want to put your bigs in to stop their bigs. Their bigs include Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, right? Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are just as likely to block as they are to go out and just absolutely crush you catching passes. So like, there's so many levels that defensive players have to be prepared for. I get it. Their defense needs to improve. And I think we can say that about a lot of teams. But what we learned today is many of the teams that flat out aren't good enough simply can't run the football. And the team over here that I'm looking at that can run the football better than anybody is the toughest to stop. So I think this was a huge win for Baltimore. It cements to me that if we're going to talk about the elite teams in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens are one. They are in that class of elite. But I even think in a loss, I sat here and thought, you know what? Maybe Washington isn't top shelf, but they're getting there. They're a heck of a lot closer to top shelf than I thought.
Fitz, this is a quality win for the Ravens. It is. Like they're going to look back at this win and say, we beat the Commanders. That ain't bad.
No, you're absolutely right. Also, quality win early this morning for Chicago. I don't think this is shocking. 35-16 is the final score in a game that really wasn't that close. The Bears win big in London. You know, I hate the international games too. I'm just spreading all my hate for different time zones.
Yeah, wow. I caught you on a salty Sunday here. You are fire.
Jags fans should be salty.
Like, oh my goodness.
Can we just say this out loudly? Like, Trevor Lawrence isn't good right now. Trevor Lawrence is not playing good football. And I'm just tired of making constant excuses for things in the NFL that aren't good. Trevor Lawrence was good in college. Trevor Lawrence was expected to be great in the pros. There are a lot of reasons that it hasn't happened. I don't care about any of them anymore. The fact is, in this game, you're watching and thinking, golly, like, who's he throwing to? What's he even trying to do? What is the identity of this Jags team? They have none. And part of the identity of this team is that Trevor Lawrence ain't all that. Like, I am not scared if I'm somebody else in the AFC South. I am not sitting here saying, oh my God, we got to draft and build our entire roster on some way to shut down Trevor Lawrence. That is no longer true. And the sooner we accept that, the sooner we can recalibrate what we should expect from the Jags.
Look, I'll say this about Trevor Lawrence today. I don't think this was all his fault. This wasn't his worst game by any means. Gabe Davis drops 2 balls in the end zone. Brian Thomas drops a ball in the end zone. Christian Kirk has a ball knocked away from him in the end zone that he could have caught. Like, help your guy out a little bit. But at the same point, like, again, if you would have turned on this game and had no idea who the players were or anything like that, and I told you, one of these quarterbacks makes $55 million a year and the other quarterback's in his 6th NFL game, 100% chance he would have said, oh yeah, number 18 of the Bears. Hey, he's the $55 million guy, right? Like there's honestly no comparison between the two quarterbacks right now. As weird as that sounds, like I don't think there's anybody out there who would pick Trevor Lawrence over Caleb Williams right now. Like, and I'm not even talking about salary. I'm just talking about who would you rather have on leading your football team for the next 2 months? I think everybody would kind of say, well, Caleb might be up and down a little bit, but I'd take Caleb for the upside.
Yeah. And again, if you're going to have a quarterback that is not what Trevor Lawrence is touted to be, you better be able to run the football. And the Jags couldn't do that.
No,
it's just
they can't defend either. Look, we're getting excited about Caleb, right? Like Caleb played great today, 4 touchdowns. But I also, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, it's against the Jaguars. Okay, what does that mean, really? Like, good for Caleb. I'm not taking anything away from him. He looked poised. He's improving and all that. But it's almost like the jokes we made about the Panthers already this season, where like the stat should count as half. Like, I'll give you credit for 2 touchdowns today, Caleb, because it came against the Jaguars. They're so bad. How does Doug Peterson have a job? Like, he might not have a job by the time people listen to this on Monday morning, I guess. I don't know how Doug Peterson has a job. Like, I just, Shad Khan, you know who Shad Khan is. Shad Khan always gets kind of ripped a little bit for being hands-off, let's say, maybe not as engaged with his NFL team as some others. Shad Khan is that dude in your fantasy league where you play him in week 6 and you look at the matchup and, oh, this guy's still got Christian McCaffrey in his lineup. He hasn't changed his lineup since August when he drafted. That's Shad Khan. He's just out to lunch. Like, well, how could you not be looking at your head coach right now saying you've lost, and I think it's 10 of their last 12, and they just show nothing. And even one of their players, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, said there was a lot of quit in this team today. And it looked like it. They had a really good drive to start the game. Gabe Davis drops a touchdown in the end zone. And it seemed like the Jaguars immediately said, all right, well, we tried. Maybe next week. They folded tents so easily. The play calling was bad. Some of the decisions were bad. I thought, honestly, Doug Peterson might get fired between London games and have to fly home by himself. And it might still happen. We don't know what's going to happen. But this Jaguars team is pathetic.
This Jaguars team is the living, eating, breathing example of why I don't believe coaching salaries should be guaranteed in the NFL. Player salaries aren't. If you look at the way business is done in the NFL, you can just fire a player at any time. You got some salary cap ramifications, but you're out on that cash once you're in the offseason, you can fire anybody. I'm looking around at Doug Peterson, and according to a quick Google search, he makes about $8.5 million a year. He's coaching like a guy that knows he gets his money either way and just doesn't care. Like the body language, the press conference, just the way he's carrying himself. There is nothing passionate about what I'm seeing from Doug Peterson. There's just an aw shucks, here we go again mentality to it. And that feels like who the Jags have become. It's just like, they're forgettable. The Jags aren't just bad. They've become the sort of franchise that we're not going to talk about for the rest of the year. Nobody's really going to pay any attention to them the rest of the year. Like the far worse in sports than being bad is being irrelevant. And the Jags have now become irrelevant. Like, go to London, stay in London. Maybe we won't have to watch you as much at that point, because this is just, it's awful. Watching it is just, I just want it to end. It's like a bad Thanksgiving dinner with your uncomfortable grandfather that just won't say things, that won't stop saying things he shouldn't. I just want this thing to end. I want it to go away. But the Bears, on the other hand, I'm looking around. I'm
Real quick though, Fitz, so one thing about I do want to get to the Bears, but I need to ask you a question because I get asked this question a lot. I don't have an answer for it. In 2017, Doug Peterson was perhaps the best coach in football. That 2017 Eagles team, he took Carson Wentz to be an MVP candidate, okay? Carson Wentz gets hurt. What Foles goes in. He leads them to a Super Bowl. Doug Peterson outcoaches Bill Belichick in a Super Bowl. All these things happened. And what happened to that Doug Peterson? How is it that we're not that far removed? I get 7 years in the NFL as a lifetime, right? It's dog years, right? With the NFL. How did Doug Peterson go from that dude who was on such a heater in 2017 to being this dude in 2024 that just has a sloppy, poorly coached football team that's losing every week? He's probably going to be the next coach fired. I don't know. I just think the best explanation I have is he just had a magical season. Like the roster was perfect for him. He was still ahead of the game, and now maybe the game has passed him by a little bit, even in 7 years. I don't have a good answer to what has happened to that Doug Peterson. Do you? Can you explain to me how a guy can go from literally, I am on top of the world, I just outcoached Bill Belichick in a Super Bowl, to the guy we saw Sunday just getting his teeth kicked in by the Chicago Bears?
I think sometimes players get hot. And it doesn't mean that they're great or they're not. It just means they got hot. I think sometimes coaches get hot too.
Yeah.
There are just times where it's like the right personalities, the right magic, a very particular personality with Carson Wentz. And if you were able to get into that personality the right way, you got the best out of him in that moment. But I also think that these things change. They're variables, and the league is constantly evolving. So even if you're great at something today, you got to continue to evolve what you do as everybody catches up with you. And I don't, what is that thing? Like, look, we can argue about whether or not the Dolphins have lived up to expectations when they don't have Tua. That's fine. But when you watch a Dolphins game, all you have to do is watch for a second, and you see everything that happens pre-snap, and you think, yep, I see why their head coach is widely regarded as being very good. You watch the 49ers, and you see their ability to shift everything and put guys in situations where it's like, yep, they found the matchup. Like, this wasn't just Brock Purdy. They found the right place to align the right guy. They did all this stuff pre-snap. I don't watch the Jags and ever think, oh, there's the brilliance. There is the catch. Yep. We did not see that one coming. Like, it's just not there. I think he had a good year. And you can have a good year, and it doesn't mean you're a great coach. And the proof is in the pudding at this point with that.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me. That's fine. Doug Peterson probably doesn't have much longer with us as an NFL head coach. So let's talk about Caleb, because I want to pose something to you that I wrote about for winners and losers, because during that game, I'd watch Caleb play really, really well. The touchdowns to Keenan Allen were superb. Like he really looked in control of the game. He looked like the guy who is finally figuring out how to harness his improvisational skills. Like, he was taking off and trying to make things happen and actually kept his eyes downfield and made things happen. It didn't look desperate anymore. It looked like he had a plan with his kind of running around and making plays like he did a lot of times when he was really playing well at USC. And then I'm watching Jayden Daniels play really well. We've watched him play well all season. And I thought, there has to be a class where quarterbacks got drafted 1-2 and both guys were good, right? Like, you just think like that has happened in NFL history. I know it hasn't happened lately. It has never happened. There's any draft where the quarterbacks go for the first pick and the second pick. It has never worked out where both guys are good. The best one, you got to go all the way back to like 1971, where Archie Manning and Jim Plunkett were the first two picks. Both guys were good enough, like Plunkett obviously, but that wasn't with the Patriots who drafted him, mostly with the Raiders in those Super Bowl years. Archie Manning was just a good quarterback on a really, really bad Saints team. So even that is kind of like, I guess. It's usually Drew Bledsoe and Rick Meyer, or Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf, or maybe even both fail, like Jameis and Marcus Mariota. Already, 6 games in, I can tell you that I believe Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels are the best quarterbacks to go 1-2 in an NFL draft ever. Like, if you look at the history, I don't think that's an outrageous claim. I just can't believe either of these guys won't be superstars unless there's major injury or something like that. Both of these guys are awesome. Like, this is really happening where we're getting guys drafted 1-2 and maybe even 3 and even further down in the first round with the quarterbacks. This quarterback class is going to be really, really good. And it's led at the top by 2 guys who I already think are like top 12-ish quarterbacks in the NFL. That's how good they've been right away.
It's alarming too, because their college experiences were so different. Caleb was such a, lauded prospect through the entirety of his career. Jayden had 1 good year, right? So there is no method to the madness. He was just a guy at Arizona State,
right? Like, you wouldn't have looked at that guy at Arizona State and been like, that guy's going to set the NFL world on fire in 3 years. Like, no, like what?
But to your point, there's sort of proof in the conversation, because as great as Jayden is right now, we're not sitting here destroying the Bears for not drafting Jayden Daniels. Like,
no, not at all.
That's significant, right? The fact that it's like, hey, Jayden is great, Washington's great, they're doing it great. We have turned around and said, why aren't the Bears doing as much with Caleb? But we have not yet had the conversation of, well, did the Bears draft the wrong guy? Because they didn't. Like, this is what we should all be rooting for. This is best for the league. This is what's best for all these teams. Like, for 1-2 to work out this way is kind of an amazing thing. It brings you a beacon of hope. And frankly, if you're a New England fan, you thought you saw some moments today from Drake Maye.
Yeah,
if you're a Broncos fan, you somehow maybe like Bo Nix talking trash when they're down 20-0. I don't know. And if you're a Vikings fan, you're saying, hey, JJ's going to be great for somebody sometime. Yeah, so you're right. Like,
Penix is still sitting there collecting cobwebs. Yeah. By the way, real quick, who do you think wins Offensive Rookie of the Year? Because I think it's a conversation now.
No, I think the hype for Jayden, it's almost like, when you've got a jury trial and you got to move it somewhere else. I don't think you can undo the publicity that we've seen for Jayden Daniels to this point. Like, I don't think you can change people's minds.
I think that we're going to look back in December. This September in the NFL seems so far away in December. Like, did stuff like that really happen? That I think Caleb's going to get a lot of late moment. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be, we're going to get to the end of December and there's going to be an actual argument of like, which guy are these voters going to vote for? Because both are deserving.
Not deserving of any praise, the Dallas Cowboys. Detroit took Dallas back behind the woodshed and showed them what a real football team does. Detroit took Dallas and marched them up and down the streets screaming, shame, shame, shame. And the craziest thing to me, Frank, is that Dallas never had the opportunity to even try to punch back. They didn't have it in them. And you know me, I was high all year on Dallas is going to come. They're going to be fine. Doesn't matter that they're one-dimensional on offense. Doesn't matter that they lost a running back. They don't have that much to replace. I've said all these things ad nauseum. I couldn't be more wrong. And today is the first time in years, as somebody that's constantly said, hey, look, the Cowboys, I'm not going to define the Cowboys by the playoffs. I've said that for years. Today's the first time I actually watched the Cowboys and thought, this is a bad football team. And there's just no nice way to say it. They have too much talent to be as bad as they are. And I've been long since on the Jerry Jones doesn't make in-season firings, like let's calm down on the McCarthy thing. You got to do something. This season is now going wildly off the rails. And to me, it's not that they lost 47-9. It's not that Detroit was running trick plays with their offensive linemen lined up at the wide receiver position. It's not any of that. It's that Dallas got punched in the mouth and looked at the Lions and just said, please, sir, may I have another? There wasn't a single time that they stood up and punched back and said, damn it, we're the Cowboys. They just stood there and took a beating. And that's what bad football teams do. I don't know how you get your confidence back from that sort of ass whooping.
I have to ask you this because I do think we're going to have different answers on this. When you came out of this game, was it more to you this was a Dallas being bad game, or was this Detroit being that good game?
Can I say both? I think the Lions. I think the Lions showed you that they are the class of the class of the class. Like I if we were going to sit down here and do contenders pretenders, that list on the NFC side to me starts with the Lions. I don't care about records. I care about just how good the Lions are, and the Lions defense. Man, that's been their Achilles heel. It was not in this one. So I think the Lions deserve a ton of love for being great in this game. The Cowboys deserve a ton of what they're going to get for the next 72 hours from the entire media landslide that's coming, because they played like dog poop. Yeah, they were terrible. I'm glad you said both, because I think what we're going to hear in the next 72 hours is all going to be about the Cowboys. Whereas I came out of this game, maybe not 100-0, but 75-25, thinking this was the Lions statement game. This was not necessarily the Cowboys. Like, yes, they were terrible. I get that. To me, I came out of this saying, I just learned a lot about the Lions. They're really, really good. They're on offense as unstoppable as there is in the league. Like we talked about the Ravens. It's either the Ravens or Lions for the best offense in the league for me. I mean, because both of them are very similar in that if you try to take one thing away, they're going to say, well, okay, have fun. We'll just do this other thing. Like they can do whatever they want. David Montgomery is maybe the most underrated player in the NFL because he just keeps churning out 100-yard games with touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs is obviously electric. They have all these pass catchers now. And they were clearly like, I don't know what the Cowboys really did to them last year in the game that was obviously very controversial for the 2-point conversion, got called back and all that. The Cowboys didn't have anything to do with the bad call, but the Lions came into this game like they were personally offended by the Cowboys. Like they got slapped in the face in front of their family or something because they were pulling out trick plays. They were up 37-9. And they ran a hook and ladder play to their right tackle, Penny Sewell. I have not seen a moment that disrespectful in the NFL for many, many years. But it's like the Lions were just like, we're not just going to beat these guys. We're going to embarrass them. We're going to make sure that they remember that they got a fluke last year. And they did. They totally did. I was so impressed with the Lions in this game. But we do have to talk about this. I think the biggest news coming out of this game, honestly, is the Aiden Hutchinson injury, which was awful. And if you're squeamish at all, do not watch it because it is one of those like injuries you're going to remember in 20 years. You're going to be like, oh yeah, Aiden Hutchinson's leg. And he's obviously done for the year. Unless he's Superman. I don't see him playing again until 2025, obviously. And I don't know that there's a defensive player in the entire NFL that means more to his defense than Aiden Hutchinson. Because even some of the other great defensive players, there's other guys on those defense to make up the slack. I think Aiden Hutchinson pulls so much weight on that defense that he might be the guy. Like he might be the most indispensable player on the defensive side of the ball in the NFL, maybe TJ Watt, whatever. And now they don't have him anymore. And I immediately thought just felt bad for Aiden Hutchinson, who great player, was on his way to contending for defensive player of the year. Great story coming from Michigan, all this stuff. And after I thought that, really feeling sad for Aiden, I thought, I don't know if the Lions can win a Super Bowl without him. I just don't know I think the offense is going to be great all year. But I don't know if the defense can keep up without Aiden Hutchinson. That is a massive loss for the Lions. And I feel so sick for their fans who had to feel so good when the score was 40-9 or whatever it was when Aiden got hurt, that all of a sudden they kind of saw their season kind of crumble a little bit. And their Super Bowl chances took a big, big hit with Aiden Hutchinson going down. Yeah, I think part of what we have to define here with the Lions is what is success, right? If success is being one of the best teams in the league and making the playoffs, they're still going to do that in my mind. If success is getting to and winning a Super Bowl, much harder without Aiden Hutchinson. I think you're absolutely right. And
I think it is making a Super Bowl this year, Fitz. I think after last season, look, they tasted it. They've tasted being a good team that could make the NFC Championship game. If they make the NFC Championship game this year and lose, as much as I hate to say this, because I hate this whole the Ricky Bobby, or if you're not first, you're last. No, that's not true. But in the Lions' case, it would just feel so disappointing if they don't make a Super Bowl because they know they got the team for it. Team can win a Super Bowl, but maybe not without Aiden.
Look at their biggest weakness is the secondary. We all know that on the defensive side of the ball. Aiden helps mask that. And so not having him there is huge. Now, I think obviously everybody wants to start putting pieces together and figure out what the team's going to do. Number one, first and foremost, the most important thing is that Aiden get healthy. We all want to see Aiden Hutchinson get back on the field. Now the Lions have to decide how aggressive they want to be in trying to address the pass rusher position. So my phone automatically blowing up because of my fandom and friendship with Max Crosby. Immediately everybody's like, the Raiders need to trade Max to the Lions. I cannot say this loud enough. There is, in my mind, absolutely zero chance that this would happen in any way, shape, or form. Agreed. Max Crosby is the face of the Las Vegas Raiders. If you're Mark Davis, you already once traded an important defensive player in Khalil Mack. You saw how that worked out. I would love to see Max go somewhere where he could win. He deserves that. I know how much Michigan means to Max. And the thought of eventually getting Max and Aiden Hutchinson together is something we would all salivate over as football fans. But if you're being very real about it, I don't think there is absolutely anything in the world. I think the Lions could come in and offer 5 first-round draft picks, and it would not matter to Mark Davis because he knows the only person he can put on a billboard in Las Vegas and say, come see this team is Max Crosby, who right now is the best player of the last generation for the Raiders and has a chance of being a Hall of Famer, one of the best players to ever wear the silver and black. There is no chance in my mind that Max Crosby is going to be traded. But if I'm the Lions, I'm calling about Max. I'm calling about Myles Garrett. I'm calling about, the Jacksonville Jags, Josh Allen, right? Like, I'm calling about any team that's bad that has a pass rusher because I am in a Super Bowl window. And this is such a hard spot to manage. And you got to think short-term, long-term. But if I'm the Lions, I don't give a damn about long-term. Right now, I just want to capitalize on what this organization has never experienced, which is, hey, y'all, like, seriously, we could win the Super Bowl this year. Go do something about it. I don't know if they can, but I'd be working the phones aggressively.
Yes. The one name that stands out to me is Hassan Reddick. That thing with the Jets ain't going to happen. Like, it's just, I think it's gone too far. There's been too many hurt feelings. There's too much history already with these two sides to make that thing work. So the Lions come in and say, you know what? We'll recoup you that pick you lost to the Eagles. We'll work out a new contract with Hassan. He gets to come to a winner. He probably wants to play football this year, I assume. He's happy that he gets a little pay raise. I think that's the one thing that can work out. Because the Jets have to realize, I get being stubborn. Like, you were like, no, this is not right. We're not just trading you because you're pulling this temper tantrum. But at some point, you got to realize it's just not going to happen. That guy's not going to come play for you. Or he's just going to come in and be incredibly unhappy and probably unproductive. I think a trade to the Lions allows the Jets to save face. It allows Hassan Reddick to feel better about whatever he wants to feel better about. And it gives the Lions a reasonable replacement for Aiden Hutchinson. Nobody's replacing Aiden Hutchinson. But Hassan Reddick could be a guy that they could actually get. They're not getting Max. They're not getting Myles Garrett. I don't even think they're getting Josh Allen. Could they get Hassan Reddick? Yeah. Why not? Like, at this point, like as long as you could figure out the contract.
I like that portion of it because whatever the Jets get in return for Hassan Reddick, they could package if they really wanted to be aggressive and try and get Devontae. Right. We're creating a whole situation here where the bricks move around for the Jets. Most importantly, I will stress this again. Aiden Hutchinson's health is the only thing that matters. And I think if you're just a general football fan, today was a real bummer of a day.
Man, that was
and
so
my heart breaks
fun.
for Lions fans.
And I'm not saying I don't get, like bummed out about every injury because nobody wants to see anybody hurt. But that one hurt a little extra just because he's such a fun player on such a fun team. And you knew immediately it was bad. It was so for grotesque. One that it was so bad. It was so grotesque. And you also knew this team isn't going to be as great anymore. This great story. It would have been the Detroit Lions winning a Super Bowl would be one of the great American sports stories ever. It really would. They've never even been there. And now you realize that story's a little further away. It's not impossible. That offense is so good that it's not impossible. Without Aiden Hutchinson, this road gets a lot longer for them.
All right, we've got a bunch of games to break down. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, one coach in a win that is absolutely getting destroyed for all the right reasons. All right, Frank, got a bunch of games to get into, not the least of which I'll eat a little crow. I've been talking about the inconsistency of Jordan Love. Jordan Love's on fire. The Green Bay Packers 34-13 win over Arizona. I really thought that, the Cardinals would start to normalize this offense thing. I figured that it would be fine. Last week was an aberration, and I'm not sure I was ready to jump on the Jordan Love train. What we saw today is that the Arizona Cardinals are not in the same class as the Green Bay Packers, and the Green Bay Jordan Love was he was good. He was just watching. It's like, this is that moment where you see this tantalizing thing and you're like, yep, that version of Jordan Love can beat a lot of teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I just wonder if Jordan Love is a streaky quarterback. We've talked a little bit about this where I'm going to cross sports on you here because I love all sports. Kyle Schwarber is a guy who could go a month without really doing anything and then be the best player in baseball for a month and just goes, kind of facilitates between that. I wonder if Jordan Love's a little bit like that where he can, when he's on, he looks like the best quarterback in football or close to it. But then again, he has games where you're like, I don't know. And we really we look back at last year and we said like, oh, maybe he just got it all together, blah, blah, blah. I never really thought of maybe this guy's just really streaky. And that's not bad, the worst thing in the world. Like, it means at some points he's going to be a really, really, really good quarterback. So this was Jordan Love at his best. He's dishing it out to everybody. He's making big plays. He's taking the offense on his back. He looked great. Like this, if he didn't look injured anymore. And what I came away with from this game was who's going to make the playoffs in the NFC North? Like,
every team is 4-2. Every team in the NFC North. Or at least 4-2 or better.
It's just hard to keep that up because eventually you're going to start playing each other, beating each other, and then the math gets really hard on getting all 4 teams in. But all 4 of these teams are playoff-worthy teams. Like I think so anyway. The Bears are my only real question, and that's becoming less of a question as we go on because their defense is really good and Caleb's improving. I just wonder, like, is this Packers team going to get kind of left out? I don't know. Like, somebody in the NFC North is probably getting left out. But, this is a really, really good football team, especially with Jordan Love playing at this level.
Yeah, 4-2 for the Bears, 4-2 for the Packers, 4-1 for the Lions, 5-0 for the Vikings.
Man. Fun.
I mean, we said coming into this year, this was going to be the best division in football. We're wrong about that a lot. We were right about that this year. Like, it is clearly the best division in football. And every one of these teams, I can say you can make a compelling case, not only getting to the playoffs, but being able to win a playoff game. So that's pretty amazing. Less than amazing would be the Tennessee Titans. If you don't believe me, when it comes to Will Levis, Calvin Ridley sounded off after the game, talking about the fact that he needed to get some targets in the beginning of the game. Play calling has become an abject disaster. Will Levis throws another terrible interception. He leads the league in turnovers at this point. The Colts get a big 20-17 win over the Titans where, man, this was just, again, I will say this every single week we talk about it, Frank. This was one quarterback in Joe Flacco making enough plays, Michael Pittman with the big game too, and another quarterback for the Titans in Will Levis making enough big plays for the other team. The one pick was massive in this game. And Will Levis just not playing clean football still. The Titans lose a game that they are going to the rest of the year sort of be kicking themselves over. If they think they can have a good season, they can't lose a game like they lost today.
No. And I mean, I'm sure Titans fans are not happy about 2 missed calls in the fourth quarter. Third down passes to DeAndre Hopkins. I need to go back and check the second one because I didn't see the outrage on social media about that one. But the first one was egregious. Like, DeAndre Hopkins just gets almost pulled down, and there's no call. Like, what? Like, how do you miss that? So I'm sure they weren't happy about that, but you shouldn't leave it up to the refs like that. Again, you're turning the ball over. You're letting Joe Flacco throw up basically a Hail Mary that Michael Pittman comes down with. By the way, Michael Pittman was like going to IR on Thursday, and on Sundays making a great catch for the game-winning touchdown.
A game-winning touchdown and the game-sealing catch late in the game. Like, he had a great catch he did, last drive. It really sealed the game for him.
Yeah, Mr. Miyagi came and did he put his hands on his back. I don't know. Right? He got suddenly healed, which was crazy. But Joe Flacco, awesome story. But yes, you're right about the Titans. Brian Callahan went nuts on the officials after the missed Hopkins call. We've seen him get mad about Will Levis before, and like you said, Calvin Ridley kind of sounded off, on not getting targets and F this and F that, and it just seems like things are really bad in Tennessee for only being 6 games into a new coach's career, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But I also think that the Titans invested money in weapons to see if they had the quarterback. That's just real. They now know they don't have the quarterback. So they're just going to have to suffer through this season and then see if they can address the quarterback position next year. One team that doesn't have any quarterback concerns for a long time, the Houston Texans absolutely thumped the Patriots. Not a big surprise. They win 41-21. The bigger part of this was always going to be how did Drake Maye look? And I think, if we're being honest, there were some really nice moments for Drake and a couple of picks. Drake looked kind of like you thought he would. He did a much better job of staying upright than I thought he'd be able to in this game, given how bad the offensive line is for the Patriots. So if I'm a Patriots fan, in a 41-21 loss, I know my team sucks. But I looked at it, I'm like, yep, all right, we got to see a little Drake Maye. We got a little appetizer on what's coming. I feel kind of good about that.
No, I'd feel good if I was a Patriots fan about what I saw. I thought he acquitted himself well. Yeah, he made mistakes. It's really his first game playing, his first start. And, You're going to, as a rookie quarterback, unless you're Jayden Daniels. This is how it works in the NFL. You take your lumps, but you just hope to see something. That's the main thing I had with Bryce Young, where last year he struggled, but unlike other guys, you never saw anything from Bryce Young. Well, you see something from Drake Maye where you're like, yeah, that's why that guy was the third pick of the draft. You saw it today. He made some good plays. And I don't know how many games they're going to win, but Drake Maye will keep them in games, and they're much more watchable right now, Drake Maye playing. So good on them. And real quick, Houston Texans look like one of the best teams in football. I have to tip my cap. Their two main moves this offseason, at least on the offensive side of the ball, were trades. One for Joe Mixon, one for Stephon Diggs. They look like they hit home runs on both. Mixon's a game changer for them. I thought Mixon was kind of a dicey proposition. His efficiency was waning with the Bengals. We know how quick you could lose it as a running back. He's really played 2 healthy games this year and looked awesome at both of them. And then Diggs stepped right in for, Nico Collins. Nico Collins out for a while, leading receiver in the NFL. Diggs was Diggs, and he made some big plays in this game. And the Texans are a real deal. That's a good football team.
They're deep enough that Diggs and Dell were able to accomplish everything they needed to. Like, they're that deep. And you're right, Mixon, a huge game, but also Dameon Pierce with some big carries in this. They rushed for almost 200 yards. So the Patriots suck. Like, that's just real. I get that. That's okay. Like, if the Patriots turn around and win 3 games and end up with the first pick in the draft, but they find out that they've got their quarterback, that's all that matters, right? That's all that matters at this point, especially going into this year's draft. So, the sky's not falling. The sky might be falling a little bit for New Orleans. They got that ass whooped by Tampa Bay, 51-27. 51-27. And look, I think we all knew that once Derek Carr went down with the oblique injury, things were going to get tough for New Orleans. But 51 points is not Derek Carr. Like, we're looking at the wrong side of the ball. Like, this is Tampa Bay being Tampa Bay. Good God.
I mean, and this wasn't just Mike Evans putting up a big game or something. This was like Sean Tucker putting in a career day. He had like 190 total yards, and Bucky Irving, who I really like, their rookie running back, had a big day. And it was just like the Saints couldn't stop anybody. And I thought the Buccaneers were going to win this game. I thought they'd win it going away, but I thought it would be one of those, well, yeah, because Spencer Rattler completed 3 passes for 12 yards, and that's all the offense they could get. Spencer was okay. Like, they actually led 27-24 at halftime after falling behind 17-zip. A few fluky plays, and Baker really kind of lost his mind on a few interceptions. But it felt like the Saints were in it at halftime, and then the defense just got destroyed in the second half. Like, all those good vibes from the first 2 weeks. We were sitting here 4 weeks ago, and the Saints had beaten the heck out of the Cowboys, and we're like, oh my goodness, the Saints are going to be good this year. No, that's all gone. Like, 4 straight losses for them. They look like a bad football team. It's not going to get much better with Derek Carr out. And a lot of that is the offense probably isn't going to be very efficient with Spencer Rattler, but the defense just, man. Oh, I don't even know how you explain 51 points at home and 200 some odd rushing yards to the Bucs. And oh my goodness.
The Bucs rushed for 277 yards. And this is not a college football game.
594 as a team. I'm just looking at that. 31 first downs. Like, again, that's like Derek Carr being out. Like, that is your defense quitting in the middle of the game and just being like, that
is your big brother taking your snot-nosed little brother and just slapping him over and over, like my brother did to me, over and over and over. That's just getting slapped. And that's what, this was a game where Baker had 3 picks that you glossed over it. They're rightfully so, because they kicked their butts. Baker had 3 picks in this game, and it didn't matter.
Too. They're bad,
it didn't. It just, when you run for 277 yards, and we're not talking about Boise State, like, I don't know what we're talking about. It's just the Saints. And remember, it's the hill I will die on. Any head coach that is absolutely known for something when they get their head coaching job that team becomes terrible at, that's a problem. Dennis Allen is supposed to be a defensive coach. You should be able to turn around and say, hey, our starting quarterback's out, but our defense can lift. Not this defense. 277 yards rushing allowed. That is inexcusable by a team that just came out flat from the outset on the defensive side of it. Like, they scored 27. Modern NFL, that should be enough to win a football game. You scored
27 with Spencer Rattler. You should feel like, okay, we need to win this game. And they got blown out by 24 points. Like, what? Like, unbelievable. Real quick, I think the Buccaneers are good. Like, we haven't really talked about them a lot, but it's like, oh, they lost to the Broncos. They're not good. Well, the Broncos aren't that bad, especially on defense. And then they blew a game against the Falcons they had no business blowing. Other than that, Buccaneers look really good. Like, that's a playoff quality team right there.
The Bucs pass the eye test. Nick Sirianni does not. All right, Philadelphia beats Cleveland 20-16. Deshaun Watson on 3rd down is almost as tragic as Deshaun Watson, the human being. I mean, I shouldn't take shots, shouldn't take personal shots. Sorry. But just had to get that off my chest. Deshaun Watson on third down, dreadful, right? Nick Sirianni, though, in a winning effort, they got video of it. He's walking through the sideline and he's chirping at fans. He's talking his talk to the fans that he didn't like the way apparently they've been talking about him. Man, this is such a stupid look. Like this is one of those moments.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
You're a head coach of a team that just won. And one of the messages that head coaches have to give players all the time is how to channel your emotion to make sure that you play with it the right way, that you use your emotion the right way. Is that the right way, coach? Is that the example? You're the leader of men wearing Philadelphia Eagles colors. Is that the right way? That's the example you want to set on how to play within the emotion that you have? That's the example you want to set on how to handle yourself in a game? That's the example you want to set of the culture of your organization? It's trash. It's a trash move by coach, and it absolutely takes away from Philly getting a win that they needed.
Yeah, and we've seen Sirianni trash talk with fans before, but it's one of those things that it's cute and it's funny when you're one of the best teams in the NFL and you're on your way to a Super Bowl. This ain't that team. I came away from this game saying, like we talked about every week, I'm not trying to bash on the Eagles here or anything, but every week I'm like, this team's not very good. I was watching this game. I'm like, this is so unimpressive by the Eagles. They can't put away the Browns. The Browns might actually beat them. There was a time in the second half, you're like, Browns are going to win this game. Like they couldn't do it because they're the Browns and they're terrible this year. But so when you're barely beating a Browns team at home and you start chirping back at the fans, like, what are you doing? This is just weird. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's not going to, again, time and situation. When you're going to a Super Bowl and you're chirping at the fans, everybody's like, oh, he's one of us. Now it's like, what are you doing, dude? Get your team better. Like, this is, it's embarrassing. It was an embarrassing look, I thought. And I don't know what was said. I'll say that. Look, I don't know the backstory. I don't know exactly what was said.
I don't care what was said.
Okay.
I don't care what was said. Like, there are two things that a buddy of mine that played for the Steelers told me. I asked the best Mike Tomlinisms of him once, and I'll never forget the two things he told me. One Mike Tomlinism is how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you'll cut corners on anything in your life, you will cut corners on everything in your life. That is one Mike Tomlinism. The other is the standard is the standard. And we hear football coaches say that all the time. All right, Nick Sirianni, the standard is the standard, and you just set the standard. Nick Sirianni, how you do anything, how you handle yourself in that moment is how you'll do everything. Now you need to look at grown men in a locker room and get them to follow you as their leader, knowing that when you're telling them, hey, don't worry about social media, don't hear what the media says, don't listen to what First Take has to say about our football team, focus on this room. When you give that message, it will fall flat because you have shown the world exactly how you handle your own emotions. And you cannot, as a coach, expect people to be better than you are at the things that you are coaching them to do. So I don't care what was said. It's still a small moment by somebody that is supposed to be a big man. He's supposed to be a head coach. All right.
And this becomes a story, Fitz. This becomes a story in Philly. We're not talking about, the Eagles won. Maybe they're getting back on track. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown both scored. The offense could be heating up. In the next 72 hours or whatever it's going to be is all going to be about Nick Sirianni, chirping to the fans. What'd they say? Can you control yourself? Like, he made himself the story for this week. And that's doesn't reflect well on him either.
Plenty of stories left to get into from the action, including my favorite team sucks. We'll talk about it next. Frank, I had minimal expectations this year. You know that. 7-8 wins was what I hoped for my beloved Raiders. Today was the day. Today was the backbreaker. I watched this game and I thought, you know what? I realized something. My favorite team sucks at football. And it sticks to it. A lot of injuries. Everybody wants to make the excuses. I don't care. At this point, moving forward for the rest of the season, I now go into every week thinking, I just suffer through it. I'll watch it. I'll try and find a beacon of light. I'll try and watch Brock Bowers and say, you know what? Brock Bowers and Max Crosby give me hope. They give me something to build on for the future. The Pittsburgh Steelers annihilate the Raiders 32-13 in a game that saw the Raiders at one point commit penalties that resulted in touchdowns for the other team. Like, it was wild to watch the inopportune mistakes made. And I just have to remind everybody, when you are a bad football team, you can't make the same mistakes good football teams make. You might only have 4 penalties, but if one of them takes away a turnover, and if one of them gives the other team an automatic first down, and if one of them ends up, with a blocked punt coming up, like, when you make those mistakes, you will get your butt kicked. The Raiders got their butts kicked And I'm just sitting back now saying, I went from thinking this was a mid-level, inconsistent football team that would drive me crazy to thinking this team might have a chance at the first overall pick in the draft.
Yes, and I can tell you the moment that you gave up on the season. The Raiders, I think it was the end of the third quarter. They're down, I believe, 22-7. The game's not over at that point. They get a touchdown taken away for a penalty. Alexander Madison scored a touchdown. No, you're okay, but fine. You're at the 1 yard line. You can punch it in, and you can't punch it in. And then they lose a fumble at the 1 yard line. And it's like, come on now. This is not professional football. Like, this is ridiculous. So I can tell you that was the moment that your heart broke for this season, for sure. I'm sorry. We'll try again next year, Fitz, with your Raiders. The one thing coming out of Pittsburgh is they keep winning with Justin Fields. Like, this was a big test for Justin Fields, I thought, because Russ is finally healthy, right? Like, now he's over his shoulder. If Justin Fields goes into a game and they're struggling and they're down 17-0, Mike Tomlin might tap Russell Wilson on the shoulder and say, let's see what you got. So Fields is basically playing for his job every week for a while now. And I thought he played well enough. He's not lighting the world on fire, especially as a passer, but scores a couple times as a rusher, makes some plays in the passing game, does enough where you're like, there's no question who's their starting quarterback next week. I guess Mike Tomlin can do what he wants to do, but you would assume that Justin Fields is still their starter next week. That's what he's got to do every week. This is a week-to-week thing for Justin Fields, and he passes for a real first test here because Russell Wilson was ready to go if he stumbled, and he didn't. And a really pretty convincing win for them. You want to beat bad teams in a big way, and they really never left this one in doubt.
Yeah, and by the way, don't look at his stat line. Some of those incompletions were actually really smart plays where he was getting rid of the ball to avoid a sack. So, I thought Fields played a pretty clean game. The Chargers played a pretty clean game. 23-16 win over the Broncos, a game that was 20-0 at one point. The Broncos get little life late, but this is going to be the Broncos for this season, right? Their defense is good, but their defense is going to have to be epic every single drive of every single play because their offense just isn't. And if you're the Chargers, Frank, this one felt like it was kind of maddening to me. Like, I know there aren't a lot of weapons, but I keep waiting for this moment where their offense gets a lot of rhythm. Like, I keep waiting for this moment where Justin Herbert looks like there's control to it. It isn't there right now for the Chargers. Again, I know they don't have the weapons, but man, I don't look at this thing and think, wow, Chargers, good football team right now.
No, not yet. You mentioned that about the Broncos defense, and you lose their great quarterback, Patrick Surtain, on the first play of the game to a concussion, and it almost showed his worth. The defense did not look the same without him. Chargers made some big plays. At one point in the third quarter, Bo Nix was stuck on 4 completions and 20-some yards, 25, 27 yards. And it's like, this is just kind of, some weeks Bo Nix is going to look okay, and some weeks he's going to look terrible. And this was a week where he looked terrible. Got hot in the fourth quarter, kind of sort of got them back in the game. It made it look better cosmetically than it really was. The Chargers dominated this game. And you looked at the Broncos. Obviously I'm here in Colorado, so you talked to a lot of Broncos fans. They're getting really excited, saying, if we could beat the Chargers this week, got the Saints on Thursday night. That looks like a winnable game. They get the Panthers after that. Could be 6-2. We're looking at the Broncos getting and this kind of took away a lot of that momentum because you're just reminded that this Broncos team is mediocre. And a lot of it's going to be, yes, the defense has to play out of its mind most weeks for them to win. And also, it's just going to depend on if we get the good Bo Nix or the bad Bo Nix. I think that's going to change many, many times during his rookie season.
If you can't play complementary football in this year's league, I don't think you can win. And I don't think the Broncos consistently can play complementary football. So when their offense is capable, they'll win some games, and we'll all be kind of impressed. But their defense is going to have to be epic every single time. I was slightly impressed for a lot of the game by Carolina. Carolina lost to Atlanta 38-20. But this was a close game in the fourth quarter. And I thought, frankly, Andy Dalton, he was playing with a little playing with a little hair on his chest. I thought this was a much pluckier effort by Carolina than I expected. Atlanta took a second to really get going. They separated in the end. I thought that this was more of a statement of Carolina being sort of pesky team. I didn't think Atlanta was particularly impressive in this effort.
Yeah, I was probably a little more impressed with Atlanta than you, but I look at I don't take anything out of this game. Carolina's bad, especially on the defensive end. They're just awful. That's probably the worst defense in the NFL, maybe Jacksonville. the Falcons look good against a really, really bad defense. What do you take out of that? Tyler Algier had 100 yards. Bijan had 95 and 2 touchdowns. Drake
they
London
ran the ball
scored
well.
a touchdown. They did. But what does it even count? It's against the Panthers. They're every week. Like, if you have fantasy players like deep on your bench and you see that they're playing the Panthers, put them in because they got shot at 100 yards and a touchdown that week. The Panthers are just absolutely miserable on the defensive side. And so I don't take much out of this game. I think Atlanta's starting to get a little bit better, and they're 4-2. That's the thing. They banked these 3 wins that they had no business winning. And now they're still not great. They're still not impressive, but they're still a 4-2 team that leads the NFC or the NFC South because they had those wins banked. I think they're going to get better. But yeah, this one was like, all right, you just beat a bad football team.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a Drake London awakening too. I like that. So Kirk Cousins played pretty well. So yeah, I mean, this wasn't a bad game. I just sort of watched it and I thought,
that's fine. That's what you got to do. You handled your business. Okay, cool. Move on.
I would love to be doing naked cartwheels in the street about every game. Some games are just sort of a game.
Yeah,
and
that's
that
what we
one
expected. And whatever.
We expected, I don't know what we expected, but we got hot garbage on the Sunday night game. The Bengals get a win, which they needed. Let's not get this twisted. The Bengals needed a win. They win 17-7 over the Giants. But, Frank, I really thought the Giants were going to take this game all the way into the fourth quarter. Like, Table aggressive with some of the fourth quarter play calling. They had the ball. They were making the drives. Like, I was a little surprised that neither team offensively could get going. I know, obviously, no Devin Singletary really mattered for the Giants. I think, being able to run the ball they wanted to run the way they wanted to. But the Bengals defense held up better than I expected. They get a 17-7 win, which was key, but I don't walk away from that saying, oh, yeah, the Bengals are packed, baby.
Oh, God, no. The only thing about this is you won. Like, okay, good, you won. You got to get so much better to be the team even remotely close to what we thought you might be this season, which was a championship contender at their peak, but that Bengals team hasn't showed up yet. They got the long run from Burrow. Like, Burrow had never had a run in the NFL longer than 23 yards. And he just takes off for a 47-yard touchdown today. It's because I don't know what the Giants are doing on defense. Like, Burrow's just running because nobody's around, and nobody really came to rally to the ball at that point. So I thought this was a really, really sloppy game for both sides. And the Bengals, I was shocked that their offense couldn't do more. Their offense hasn't been a problem really the last couple of weeks. In this game, they did nothing other than that Burrow run. And then they broke one at the end when the Giants were like, ugh, we're done with this game. Chase Brown breaks 30-yard touchdown. Really unimpressive for the Bengals offense. Now, if you do want to take something positive, the Bengals defense looked a lot better. They were healthier on the defensive line. They did hold down the Giants, but what does that even really mean? I thought Daniel Jones just played terribly in this game. He missed a lot of stuff. And, they missed a couple field goals, and that leads to probably a poor decision by Brian Daboll. They could have kicked a 54-yard field goal to try to tie it, but he's like, I can't trust this kicker. So he goes for it. They don't get it. And then at the end of the game, they're trying to do the whole, we're going to kick a field goal, try to get an onside, and he misses another field goal. So it's almost like, I guess you can't trust your kicker. What are you going to do? You just got to go for it on fourth down. I just thought it was a terrible game. It was a bad football game. I'm sorry to everybody who tuned in because this was not what we signed up for. Bengals get a win, and that's about all I could positively say about either team. Like, okay, the Bengals are 2-4 instead of being 1-5. Great. Good for you.
So tomorrow night, we get a much more dramatic matchup, at least on paper. Buffalo taking on the Jets. Buffalo at this point is a favorite by 1. A lot's being made of Todd Downing taking over the play calling. I think on every one of our shows, I've made it very clear that I don't have any faith in this, but this feels like a really substantial moment, right, Frank? Like, if you are the Jets and you want to save this season, and by save this season, I mean turn it around and become the Super Bowl contender the world thought you were going to be, man, you got to get this one. Like, this is the one that really cements it. And if you are the Bills, man, you have the opportunity to really just thumb down, just absolutely push down somebody in your division that was supposed to be a challenger. I think the ability to really impact the storyline for the rest of the season out of this game is a wild storyline in this one.
Yeah, and I mean, the Bills are dealing with some key injuries, too, coming in this game. Ed Oliver is out. Might not have James Cook. Might not have Khalil Shakir. We saw them miss him last week against the Texans. So, I think the Jets win this game. We talked about this a little bit on Friday. I'm buying into the narrative that this was a wake-up call for them. And usually you see that dead cat bounce for the teams that fire their coach. They often come out the next week and play pretty hard, pretty well. I think you're going to see that out of the Jets. And I think they do realize this season's not over. If we win this game, they've heard a million times, because we've heard a million times, if they win this game, they're in first place of the AFC East. And then if they win this game, all of a sudden they're going to get to the offense on Tuesday and be like, hey, maybe we should trade for Devontae Adams. Maybe we should make some moves. I mean, let's go. We're in first place. So I'm buying in. I'm buying into that narrative that the Jets come out. They looked focused. They looked almost not rejuvenated, but just a wake-up call. They're like, oh, we need to get our stuff together because we got our coach fired. We need to play better than that. And we need to win this game. This game, you're right. This game is either, okay, the Bills are going to run away with the AFC East. It's over. Or we have some real drama in the AFC East. Like, this is a huge, huge game for that division. And I do think the Jets get it. I just think the Jets are going to turn their season around.
The biggest part of this game, to your point, is that whatever happens Monday night will change what happens in the league on Tuesday. Because if the Bills win this game, then they will have a 2.5 game lead in their division, essentially, because they'll own the tiebreaker currently against the Jets. If you're the Jets and you're 2.5 games back of the Bills, you may not want to be aggressive in trying to get Devontae. If you're tied, if you've got the tie plus the tiebreaker at this point, changes the entire strategy. So the way the phone calls are going to be made Tuesday and Wednesday will change based on what happens Monday. My thing is that this has been an offense that has lacked rhythm. This has been an offense that's lacked accuracy from Aaron Rodgers. This has been an offense that really, in my mind, has not found a way to make the most out of Garrett Wilson. I know 13 catches last week, but the depth of target on those catches, like they were just force-feeding short passes. Yeah. Like that's just compiling numbers at that point. I have not seen brilliance from this offense that makes me think suddenly a new play caller will fix some of the timing issues. Like we're seeing Aaron Rodgers overthrow guys. We're seeing guys stop on routes. Those things with a couple of practices, I don't know that a couple of practices and a walkthrough changes that. So even though I want to see, like, I think the NFL is more interesting over the course of the next week if the Jets win this football game. I also think that the death of the Bills is the most over-reported conspiracy theory in sports over the last 5 years. Like, it's just every time we have a chance to put the Bills 6 feet under, we do. And that hasn't happened. So you got a quarterback in Josh Allen that knows what's on the line. I feel like the Bills have the chance to come in and make a statement, and they've been there. They've been capable of doing that in the past. I think Buffalo wins this football game. I hope the Jets win this football game because I think it's actually a better story for the NFL. But I think Buffalo has the chance to really stamp this division, and they'll do it.
It's not just a result for the Jets, although it matters. Like, it matters if you're 2+ games back, like you said. If they get blown out by 28 points in this game, you're not making any moves. Like, you're probably like, okay, we just stink this year. Maybe if you lose by a last-second field goal or something, you feel okay. But how they play in this game, I think, matters a lot too. That it looked like, hey, we want to play for Jeff Ulbrich. We want to save our season, or do they just look like, you know what, we don't really like each other. We're just ready to be done. Like, I don't know. I think it matters. I think that's why it's always tough. People ask, I hate to bring it all back to power rankings. People always ask me, well, if the Commanders win against the Ravens, are you going to move them up to number whatever? And I'm like, I can't say that without seeing the game. Everything has context. Like, you could win like the Bengals did tonight. Like, the Bengals looked terrible and they won the game. If the Bengals would have won 42-3, I would have been like, whoa, the Bengals are back. Like, it's all contextual. So I want to see how the Jets play, not just a result of win-loss, but can they look better? Do they look like a team that's like, we need to get this going? I think they will, but we got to see.
The body language police are going to be out in full effect for this game. Whatever happens, everybody's going to be watching it. We're always watching Stone. He's our producer behind the scenes. We couldn't do this without his incredible work. So thank you to Stone, obviously. Thank you to you guys for listening. Be sure you rate, subscribe, review the podcast. Really helps us out. Follow us on social media at Yahoo Schwab. I'm at Jason Fitz. We'll be back Wednesday hanging out with you. I hope everybody I hope your team doesn't suck as much as mine does. That's what I hope for everybody listening, that your team is not living in the barrel of suck, because I feel like I'm about to go through my, 10th rebuild in the last 15 years. Hopefully your Sunday night's better than mine. Appreciate you guys listening. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.